If you're just waking up with us here on CBS Sports HQ, we got some breaking news to share with you out of the NFL. Broncos finalizing a deal to hire Packers OC Nathaniel Hackett to be their next head coach. It's been confirmed by our insider Josina Anderson. Hackett's been a hot name in the coaching carousel, scheduled to have a second interview with the Jags today, but GM George Paton says, nope, I'm going to grab you now. I'm going to take over for Vic Fangio. Spent the past 3 seasons Hackett did running the offense in Green Bay, and before that, the OC in Jacksonville for 3 seasons. So one domino has fallen, 8 still left to go. The Raiders do technically have an interim coach in Rich Bisaccia, but that could change if they get a new general manager. Mike Mayock no longer there out in Las Vegas. And added to the list this week, the Saints after Sean Payton decided to step down in New Orleans. Let's bring in Pick Six Pod super friend Ryan Wilson, also our draft analyst. Ryan, what do you think about this move with Nathaniel Hackett going to Denver?
I think a good sign, Tommy, is that everyone seems to be on board as you hear the comments come in. Everyone appears to love Nathaniel Hackett. No one more, perhaps most importantly, than Aaron Rodgers, who had only glowing things to say about the former Packers offensive coordinator. He credited Hackett a lot with the success that offense had. And again, this is coming from a future Hall of Famer, first ballot guy who has carried this organization on his shoulder for quite some time now, more than 15 years. So that's a good sign. It's also a good sign that there were other teams very much interested in Hackett. 4 teams total had asked to interview him. And as you mentioned, the Broncos made the move. They were down to 3 guys, it sounded like, and Kevin O'Connell was one of them. Dan Quinn was the other, and of course Nathaniel Hackett. And Hackett got the job. He was previously with the Bills, the Jaguars, where he had a lot of success, obviously had success with the Packers, has never been a head coach. And I'm sure you could ask questions about whether he has enough experience, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have success going back again to the job that you failed at previously. So I think there's reason for optimism, Tommy, across the board. Vic Fangio, I thought, did a good job with what he had. But the last thing Vic Fangio said was, you can't win in this division without a quarterback. So I think that's going to be the first order of business for GM George Paton and, of course, Nathaniel Hackett now that he's the head coach. Because
he's leaving Green Bay, there are natural connections to Aaron Rodgers, maybe even a Devontae Adams super team reference in the NFL, which never really happens. But what do you think about the potential there, at least at the very surface?
Well, let's see, Tommy. Which team went out and got Peyton Manning? Oh, the Denver Broncos. So never say never. Peyton Manning's situation was certainly a little bit different than Aaron Rodgers. He was coming off that serious neck injury, but he came back and helped that team to the Super Bowl. I think it's very much on the table. Those rumors were happening a year ago at this time as we worked our way towards the summer, and it was unclear if Aaron Rodgers was going to come back to the Packers. He did, had a lot of success, and now the Packers are up against it salary cap-wise. The Broncos are in really good shape salary cap-wise. The Broncos have a ton of draft picks, and I would imagine even at 37, 38 years old, the Broncos would very much be willing to entertain the idea of giving up 3 first-round picks or something close to that for Aaron Rodgers for 2 or 3 years if you knew you were going to be very competitive in that division. And this is how crazy it seems. Just for the sake of hypothetical, our buddy John Breach, who is on the Pick Six podcast with me, he said he would make the Broncos the #1 team in that division with Aaron Rodgers, which to me sounds a bit ambitious. But again, that tells you how important Aaron Rodgers is, and we know that he would love the offensive coordinator should he end up in Denver.
It's interesting because coming into this past season, the Broncos and the Browns were sort of like trendy future Super Bowl picks because they were really only a quarterback away. As you referenced, a great roster composition, and that didn't work out because they tried everything. They go, Teddy Bridgewater, they go Drew Lock. Looking at your draft, I know you fudged things around a little bit at one point not too long ago. You had 6 and 9, Corral and Pickett. Lately, you've got Corral at 9. What do you think Denver does for the second straight year with a top 10 pick at number 9?
So, right, last year was Patrick Surtain, the cornerback, who had a really good rookie campaign. And I think it's all going to come down to free agency, Tommy, to sort of hedge my bets here. As I mentioned, they have a lot of cap space, $40-50 million range, I believe. So they can go out and make some moves in free agency. They can package up some of these draft picks. 5 of their first, they have the top. They have 5 picks within the first 95 picks. So if they want to package some of those picks and make a move for whether it's an Aaron Rodgers, a Russ Wilson, I don't know if Deshaun Watson would be in the mix. I don't think Derek Carr would be traded inside the division. He would upgrade the quarterback position, but I don't know if it would be enough to be competitive week in and week out in the AFC West. So that's what we have to see play out first. But if they get to the draft, as you mentioned, I've had him taking Matt Corral in my latest mock draft. He's an explosive strong-armed quarterback who could do things on the edge in terms of running the ball if you need him to do that. We saw Patrick Mahomes have such a great game against the Bills, in part because he and Josh Allen did a lot of the rushing. I think they both led their teams in rushing. Matt Corral can do that. He's undersized at about 6'1", but that doesn't mean he can't be successful. Russ Wilson's incredibly successful. We've seen shorter quarterbacks have success. Lamar Jackson might be 6'2". So there's certainly precedent in terms of being that size and being competitive. He took a ton of hits at Ole Miss, and he's incredibly tough, and he can make all the throws and do all the things you want him to do. And by the way, Nathaniel Hackett's the offensive mastermind, so he will find ways to make that work if that's the route they go. The only issue is I think if you bring in Matt Corral in 2022, you can't expect to have immediate success in that division. If you were in the AFC South, for example, maybe that's a more likely scenario. But I think when you're going up against Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Derek Carr, the expectations have to be taken with a grain of salt. That said, they have a lot of pieces around whoever the quarterback's going to be competitive much sooner rather than later.
And quickly here, other draft needs, is there a position group or one side of the ball to focus on outside of quarterback?
Offensive line is going to be a concern, and we always talk about that when you pair, whether it's a young quarterback or a franchise quarterback, you have to be able to protect that person. Joe Burrow was sacked 9 times last week. Cincy obviously has to fix that. Bobby Massey, the right tackle for Denver, his contract's up, and the backups behind him, their contracts are up as well. That could be a consideration at 9 if one of those offensive tackles falls there. Charles Cross, for example, might be an option. Also, cornerback. We talked about Patrick Surtain going last year in the first round. They only have 3 cornerbacks under contract, Surtain, Ronald Darby, and Michael Ojemudia. So they could also draft a cornerback there, and Andrew Booth, out of Clemson. Derek Stingley, if he's there, could be a consideration. But I think we start the conversation, Tommy, with quarterback and then go from there.
Ryan Wilson with the breaking news, part of the Pick Six podcast. The Super Friend joining us here, breaking it down on the Q. I'm sure that they'll fire this up on the next topic, if not an emergency pod, a regularly scheduled daily pod, because the guys put out some great content. Download and follow host Will Brinson, Ryan Wilson, and John Breach.